In the infinite expanse of space, where stars flicker like distant memories and silence reigns supreme, a sleek obsidian spacecraft slices through the void, its angular frame glinting faintly in the light of dying suns. Inside, two striking alien sisters sit cloaked in tense silence, their bald heads bowed under the weight of betrayal and exile. Cast out from their utopian home planet for daring to question its rigid ideals, they are now hurtling toward Earth, a chaotic, unpredictable world teeming with primitive life. But as their ship descends into the atmosphere, blazing like a fallen star, neither sister could have imagined that this journey would lead them not only to survival but also to something far more profound, love. A sleek, obsidian spacecraft glided effortlessly through the endless void of space. Its sharp edges reflected the faint glow of distant stars, creating an eerie yet mesmerizing sight. Inside, two striking alien women sat in silence. Their smooth, bald heads glistened under dim lights, their high cheekbones casting sharp shadows across their faces. These sisters had been banished from their home planet for daring to challenge the rigid societal norms that governed their people. Accused of harboring radical ideas about individuality and self-expression, they were now hurtling toward a primitive world called Earth, a place teeming with chaos and unpredictability. "I still can't believe they've done this to us," whispered one sister, her emerald eyes blazing with anger. "Casting us aside like we're nothing more than refuse, all because we dared to question their precious unity." Her voice trembled with indignation as she clenched her fists tightly. The other sister sighed, running a slender hand over her scalp. "We knew the risks when we voiced our beliefs," she replied softly, her tone carrying both sadness and resolve. "But I never imagined they would go so far as to exile us among these savages." The ship shuddered violently as it entered Earth's atmosphere, flames licking at its heat shields. Both women braced themselves, their metallic bodysuits adjusting automatically to the increasing gravitational forces. With a deafening crash, the craft slammed into the ground, carving a deep trench into a grassy field on the outskirts of a sprawling city. Steam hissed from the vents as the hatch slowly opened, revealing the two aliens to a crowd of curious onlookers. Humans of all shapes and sizes gathered around, gawking at the visitors from another world. Their minds struggled to comprehend the advanced technology before them. The sisters stepped out of the ship, standing tall and proud despite their circumstances. They refused to show any sign of weakness before what they considered an inferior species. The humans murmured amongst themselves, pointing and snapping photos with their rudimentary devices. One of the sisters muttered under her breath, "Pathetic. These creatures are barely more evolved than animals." The other shot her a warning glance. "Remember," she said firmly, "we must blend in if we hope to survive here. It's the only way." A man in a dark suit pushed his way through the crowd, flanked by armed soldiers. He approached cautiously, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. "Greetings," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I am General Marcus Briggs, representing the United Earth government." "We come in peace," sneered the first sister, unimpressed by the human's display of authority. But the second sister stepped forward, inclining her head respectfully. "My name is Arya, and this is my sister Lyra," she said, her melodic voice soothing. "Our people send us here as punishment, but perhaps in time, we may come to see it as a blessing in disguise." The general blinked, clearly taken aback by Arya's diplomatic response. He cleared his throat, regaining his composure. "Well, welcome to Earth, then," he stammered. "We will do our best to accommodate you during your stay. If you'll follow me, we have much to discuss." As Arya and Lyra allowed themselves to be led away, they couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation mingled with apprehension. Earth was a chaotic, unpredictable world full of unknown dangers, but it also held great potential. Deep down, in a secret place they dared not acknowledge, both sisters wondered if they might find something unexpected on this strange planet, something called love. The stark white walls of the interrogation room seemed to close in on Arya and Lyra as they sat across from General Briggs and his team of scientists and military personnel. The humans bombarded them with questions, their primitive minds struggling to grasp the complexities of the sisters' society and technology. "So let me get this straight," Briggs said, rubbing his temples. "You two were exiled for having radical ideas about personal freedom?" "That's it." Lyra scoffed, her emerald eyes flashing with disdain. "You wouldn't understand, human. On our planet, the collective is everything. Individuality is seen as a weakness, a threat to our way of life." Arya placed a calming hand on her sister's arm. "What Lyra means is that our people value unity above all else. But we believe true strength comes from embracing our differences, not suppressing them." The general leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Interesting. And what exactly do you plan to do now that you're here on Earth?" Arya and Lyra exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. They had discussed this very question during their long journey, but the answer still eluded them. "We don't know," Arya admitted softly. "We never expected to find ourselves in this situation. But perhaps, with your help, we can find a place for ourselves here." Briggs nodded slowly, his eyes calculating. "I see. Well, as representatives of the United Earth Government, it's our duty to ensure the safety and well-being of all sentient beings on our planet. We'll do our best to assist you in any way we can." The general stood, signaling the end of the interrogation. "For now, we've arranged temporary accommodations for you in a secure facility. You'll have access to all the amenities you need, as well as a team of experts to help you acclimate to life on Earth." As Arya and Lyra followed the humans out of the room, their minds reeled with the sudden turn their lives had taken. Walking through the sterile corridors of the facility, they couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. "I don't trust them," Lyra whispered, her eyes darting nervously from side to side. "They're hiding something, I can feel it." Arya frowned, her brow furrowed in thought. "Perhaps. But we have no choice but to play along for now. We need their help if we hope to survive in this primitive world." The sisters were led to a small, sparsely furnished room with 2 narrow beds and a tiny bathroom. It was a far cry from the luxurious quarters they were accustomed to on their home planet, but it would have to suffice. As the door clicked shut behind them, Lyra flopped onto one of the beds with a groan. "This is a nightmare," she muttered, staring up at the ceiling. "Stuck on this backwater planet with these savages." Arya sat beside her, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "Come now, sister. It's not all bad. Think of it as an adventure, a chance to explore a new world and learn about a different way of life." Lyra snorted, rolling her eyes. "You always were an optimist, Arya. But even you have to admit this situation is less than ideal." Arya sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I know. But we have to make the best of it. Who knows? Maybe we'll find something here that we never even knew we were missing." As the sisters settled in for their first night on Earth, they couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to change in ways they never could have imagined. Deep down, in a place they barely dared to acknowledge, they both wondered if that change might just be for the better. Days turned into weeks as Arya and Lyra adjusted to life on Earth. The humans provided them with everything they needed, food, clothing, shelter, but the sisters still felt like outsiders, isolated and alone in a world that was not their own. They spent their days learning about Earth's history and culture, marveling at the primitive yet strangely endearing ways of its inhabitants. Lyra found herself drawn to their art and music, captivated by the raw passion and emotion that seemed to pour out of every note and brushstroke. Arya, on the other hand, was fascinated by their science and technology, the ingenious ways they had found to overcome their physical limitations. Yet, even as they immersed themselves in the wonders of Earth, the sisters couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. They had each other, of course, but there was a void in their hearts that they couldn't quite explain. One day, as they explored the bustling marketplace near the facility where they were staying, they stumbled upon a small stall selling handcrafted jewelry. The pieces were simple but beautiful, imbued with a sense of love and care that they had never seen before. "Look at these," Lyra breathed, picking up a delicate silver bracelet. "The craftsmanship is exquisite." Arya smiled, running her fingers over a pair of earrings shaped like stars. "They are lovely. Humans may be primitive, but they have a way of finding beauty in the simplest things." As they browsed the stall, the vendor, a kindly old man with twinkling eyes, struck up a conversation with them. He asked about their home planet and their reasons for coming to Earth, listening intently as they shared their story. "Ah, I see," he said, nodding sagely. "You two have been through quite an ordeal. But perhaps it was meant to be, a chance for you to find something that you never knew you were looking for." Lyra frowned, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" The old man chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Love, my dear. The greatest force in the universe, the one thing that can break down any barrier and heal any wound." Arya blinked, taken aback by the man's words. "Love? But we have each other, and our duty to our people. What more could we need?" The vendor shook his head, a knowing smile on his face. "There are many kinds of love, my child. The love between sisters is a beautiful thing, but it is not the same as the love between two hearts that beat as one." As they left the marketplace, their minds buzzing with the old man's cryptic words, Arya and Lyra couldn't help but feel a strange sense of longing. They had always been content with each other's company, but now they wondered if there might be something more out there, something that could fill the emptiness in their hearts. Little did they know, their chance at true love was closer than they ever could have imagined. In the shadows of the facility where they were being held, two human soldiers had been watching them from afar. Their own hearts stirred with feelings they had never known before. Sergeant Ryan Carter and Corporal Ethan Blake had been assigned to the security detail at the facility. They had watched the alien sisters from a distance, marveling at their otherworldly beauty and the grace with which they carried themselves. Ryan, a tall, broad-shouldered man with piercing blue eyes, found himself drawn to Lyra's fiery spirit and quick wit. He admired the way she stood up for herself and her beliefs, even in the face of adversity. Ethan, on the other hand, was captivated by Arya's gentle nature and keen intellect. He loved the way her eyes lit up when she talked about science and technology, the passion in her voice as she described the wonders of the universe. But as much as they longed to approach the sisters, to get to know them better, they knew it was forbidden. Fraternization between humans and aliens was strictly against protocol, and they couldn't risk their careers for a chance at love, or could they? One night, as Ryan and Ethan were on patrol near the sisters' quarters, they heard a commotion coming from inside. Without hesitation, they burst through the door, their weapons at the ready. What they found was not an intruder or a threat, but Arya and Lyra in the throes of a heated argument. The sisters were shouting at each other in their native tongue, their faces flushed with anger and frustration. "What's going on here?" Ryan demanded, lowering his weapon. Lyra whirled around, her eyes flashing with fury. "It's none of your concern, human. This is between me and my sister." But Arya stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion. "No, Lyra. We need help. We can't keep going on like this, pretending everything is fine when it's not." She turned to Ethan, her eyes pleading. "Please, we need someone to talk to, someone who can understand what we're going through." Ethan glanced at Ryan, a silent conversation passing between them. They knew they were taking a risk, but they couldn't turn their backs on the sisters, not when they needed them most. "All right," Ryan said, holstering his weapon. "We're here to listen. But this stays between us, okay?" And so, in the quiet of the night, the four of them sat down and talked. Arya and Lyra poured out their hearts, sharing their fears, doubts, hopes, and dreams. Ryan and Ethan listened intently, offering words of comfort and encouragement. As the night wore on, the walls between them crumbled, replaced by a growing sense of trust and understanding. "I never thought I'd feel this way about anyone, let alone someone from another world," Ryan confessed, his eyes locked on Lyra. But getting to know you, even in this short time, feels right, like it's meant to be. Lyra reached out, her hand gently cupping his cheek. I feel the same way, Ryan. I never believed in destiny until I met you. Arya and Ethan exchanged a glance, their hands inches apart, yearning to touch. I know we've just met, Arya whispered, but I feel like I can trust you, Ethan, like we could face anything together. Ethan smiled, his fingers gently brushing against hers. I'll always be here for you, Arya. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. It was a love born in the heat of the moment, a connection forged through shared experiences and the promise of a future together. As they sat there, their hearts laid bare, they knew they had found something rare and precious, a love that could overcome any obstacle. But their newfound happiness was short-lived. Even as they basked in the warmth of each other's company, dark forces were gathering on the horizon. The leaders of their home planet had learned of Arya and Lyra's growing attachment to Earth and its inhabitants. And they were not pleased. They saw the sisters' newfound empathy and understanding of individual freedom as a threat to their way of life, a cancer that needed to be excised before it could spread. And so, they sent a team of elite warriors to Earth with orders to eliminate the sisters and anyone who stood in their way. The stage was set for a battle that would test the limits of their love and loyalty, a fight for survival that would change the course of their lives forever. The attack came without warning, a blinding flash of light that lit up the night sky like a second sun. Arya and Lyra were jolted awake by the sound of explosions and the screams of terrified humans. They leapt out of bed, their bodies tense and ready for battle. They knew what was coming, the inevitable confrontation with their own people. Ryan and Ethan burst into the room, their faces grim and determined. We have to get you out of here, Ryan said urgently. Your people are here, and they're not taking any prisoners. Arya and Lyra exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. They knew what they had to do, the sacrifice they had to make. No, Arya said calmly. We won't run. We won't let them destroy everything we've built here. Lyra nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. We'll fight side by side until the end. Ryan and Ethan hesitated, torn between their duty and their love. But in the end, they knew they couldn't let the sisters face this threat alone. Together, the four of them raced out into the chaos, their weapons drawn and their hearts pounding. They fought their way through the streets, taking down warriors with a deadly combination of skill and desperation. The battle raged around them, laser blasts and explosions filling the air. Arya and Lyra fought side by side with Ryan and Ethan, their movements perfectly synchronized as they took down one warrior after another. They fought not just for themselves but for each other, for the love that had grown between them in the face of adversity. Each blow they struck, each shot they fired, was fueled by the strength of their bond. Watch out! Lyra shouted, tackling Ryan to the ground just as a laser blast whizzed past his head. Ryan grinned up at her, his heart pounding with a mixture of adrenaline and affection. Thanks for the save, gorgeous, he said. Lyra smirked, pulling him to his feet. Anytime, handsome. Now let's finish this. Across the battlefield, Arya and Ethan were locked in a fierce melee with a group of elite warriors. They moved as one, their bodies and minds perfectly attuned to each other. Duck! Ethan yelled, swinging his laser rifle like a club and taking out a warrior who had been sneaking up behind her. Arya flashed him a grateful smile before spinning and firing off a series of shots that dropped 3 more enemies. Nice one, Ethan said, grinning. We make a pretty good team, don't we? The best, Arya agreed, her eyes shining with pride and love. As the battle reached its climax, the four of them found themselves back to back, surrounded by a sea of enemies. But even in that desperate moment, they knew they would never surrender, never give up on each other or the love they shared. With a final, desperate push, they broke through the enemy lines, their human allies surging forward to join them. The tide had turned, and victory was within their grasp. And as they stood there, battered and bloodied but unbroken, they knew that their love had been their greatest weapon, their most powerful ally. They had faced the worst the universe could throw at them and emerged stronger, united by a bond that could never be broken. In the end, the invaders were defeated, their warriors scattered and their ships destroyed. Arya and Lyra stood tall amidst the rubble, their bodies battered but their spirits unbroken. Ryan and Ethan rushed to their side, their faces streaked with sweat and blood. They embraced the sisters, their hearts swelling with pride and relief. "You did it," Ryan whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "You saved us all." Arya smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "No, my love. We did it together." As the sun rose over the shattered city, casting a warm glow over the survivors, they knew they had found something worth fighting for. They had found a love that could overcome any obstacle, a bond that could unite even the most unlikely of allies. They had found a home, a place where they belonged, and they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, side by side, until the very end. Years had passed since that fateful battle, but the love between Arya, Lyra, Ryan, and Ethan had only grown stronger with time. They had faced countless challenges together, both on Earth and among the stars, but their bond had never wavered. They stood now on a hilltop overlooking the city they had helped to rebuild, their hands clasped tightly together as they watched the sun set over the horizon. The scars of the past had faded, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. "I never thought I'd find a home here," Lyra murmured, leaning her head against Ryan's shoulder. "But being with you, building a life together, it feels right." Ryan pressed a kiss to her forehead, his arm tightening around her waist. "You are my home, Lyra. Wherever you are, that's where I belong." Arya and Ethan exchanged a smile, their eyes shining with the depth of their love. "We've been through so much together," Arya said softly. "But I wouldn't change a single moment of it because it brought us here, to this moment." Ethan nodded, his hand gently squeezing hers. "And whatever the future holds, we face it together. Just like we always have." As the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky, the four of them stood together, united by a love they had found and a place they had carved out for themselves in the universe. Nothing could ever tear them apart.